Hello, I'm Ryan Oelke, CEO of PowerUp Productions, and today I'm talking with our lead developer, Jonah West, and we are going to discuss 9 reasons why WordPress is better than Squarespace, because we get this question an awful lot, and sometimes it's a little confusing to understand why one platform is better than another. And for us at PowerUp and serving our clients, we strongly prefer WordPress, and it's not just because we're geeks and we like what we like. We really look out for our clients and what would best serve them. So these reasons we're giving you, we really truly believe that these are going to benefit you and in particular, the type of clients that we work with. So what we'll do first is I want to list out the 9 reasons why we think WordPress is better, and then we'll dive into each one of them with some commentary from Jonah and I of what these reasons actually mean. So number 1, WordPress powers 30% of the internet, which is a huge number if you fathom the scope of the internet. And we'll get into why that's important. 2, it's easier to find help for WordPress than Squarespace. So if you're looking for people, developers, designers, whoever, you're going to find more people out there. Number 3, WordPress is much more innovative as a platform and allows you to customize your website to your business needs, especially as you grow and evolve. Number 4, Squarespace is deceptively not easier to use. And we'll get into why that is the case. That's a big selling point with Squarespace, is that it's supposed to be easier to use, but that's not entirely true. Number 5, WordPress dominates Squarespace when it comes to SEO. So your SEO, your search engine results, how you show up in search engines, you have much more control and power with WordPress. Number 6, you have better ability to collect data on your website. And data, this sounds like a nerdy thing here, but data collection helps drive marketing sales. It's a big deal. So like collecting an opt-in for an email sign-up, that's an example of data, but there's a lot more to it. And number 7, portability. So even though you always want to believe that every tool you're using and every platform you're on is going to last, you want to know that ultimately you can easily take your site and your content wherever it needs to go. And WordPress allows much more portability should you ever want to even leave the platform compared to Squarespace. And number 8, the e-commerce in WordPress is much more robust than Squarespace. Squarespace is pretty limiting on that front. And then number 9, WordPress is excellent for multilingual websites, which is becoming more and more important these days. Compared to Squarespace, it eclipses that as well. So those are the 9 big reasons, but we'll dive into a little bit more in each one of them. So WordPress powering 30% of the internet. So Jonah, you listed off several huge websites that are using WordPress, which I find
right.
It's not just tiny sites and solopreneurs and small businesses.
No, and there's a lot more not in this list as well. And I think even like this 30% is potentially a little outdated at this point.
Oh, wow.
It might even be more than that right
Yeah.
now. So yeah, I mean, just a huge part or portion of the internet of the websites that are out there are powered on WordPress. And I think probably one of the biggest reasons why is because WordPress is so easy to install, easy to use. It's so flexible in the things that you can do with it via plugins or via themes. So,
Yeah.
Everyone out there, all these people using WordPress, I think understand that it's just got so much bang for your buck that they're going with that as an option.
Yeah, and so some of these sites you listed here, the New York Observer, New York Post, TED, Thought Catalog, USA Today, CNN, these are just huge websites. So this tells you how strong WordPress is as a platform, because these people would not use WordPress if it was not stable and powerful.
Secure, stable, powerful.
Yep, totally. And what we'll get in here to a little bit more on number 4, and Squarespace being deceptively not easier to use, is that, once you're up and running, which often you're going to need help from somebody else, unless you're a marketer, a brander, a developer, you usually want help in creating an effective website. That's the big deal, is like just having a website doesn't mean it's effective at being successful in running your business. And so once you get WordPress up and running, it's quite easy to use, and it can yeah. So we'll talk about that a little bit more. Number 2, easier to find help. So yeah, okay, I guess this transitions nicely from what I just said, is that you're going to need help. Like, there's just no way around that. If you take your business seriously, in my opinion, you're going to want help there. And WordPress is huge. And Jonah, I know you've been involved in WordPress support for quite a long time.
Yeah, over 10 years. I found WordPress a long time ago after trying multiple different content management systems, from e-commerce to just other systems similar to WordPress, but WordPress just had this easier feel to it and kind of just a more active community. But anyway, I guess so the community, it seemed like it was going to be easier to have options and easier to find help for things, because there's just so many other people using WordPress. There's so many other developers. So if you do need help, posting a job posting or searching for a company that has some experience or specializes in WordPress like we do, you're gonna be able to find help.
Yeah, and to think about that, for 10 years, like people like you and PowerUp, we've been around for 10 years. Like, that depth of experience working in a platform is something that can only happen over time. And then it's not just about the tech part of things, because you want to seek out tech help, but that the community around WordPress, all the people leveraging it, you can rely on them and saying like, okay, you use your WordPress site for your business. How are you leveraging it? So it can come from the technical side, the branding side, the marketing side, sales, business development. All these people have been developing and using WordPress for quite a long time. So there's a huge benefit to that. Whereas with Squarespace, I think just a lot of people who use it are using it very simply, and people aren't really testing the bounds of what is possible there, both technologically and in terms of marketing. And so it's going to be kind of flat in terms of finding community support compared to WordPress.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And this also leads into number 3 here about WordPress is much more innovative, and you can customize it to your business needs as you grow. And in terms of innovation, Squarespace they are a closed platform, meaning Squarespace, the company, owns the platform. Customers pay them to use the service, and because of that, they're decidedly not going to be innovative, because it's about controlling variables and risk for them. So they want their platform to be simple, and they want it to work, which means they're not going to be trying a bunch of different things, and they don't open the platform up to people to innovate. You have to use what's right there, and that is it. WordPress as a platform is open source. It's free to use by default. And everybody can develop and innovate new technology, new solutions for that platform all the time, and which opens up new possibilities in terms of marketing and branding and sales. So to me, it's pretty black and white. What are your thoughts on that, Jonah?
Yeah, so Squarespace is pretty limited, like you said, to what they're doing, what they can do with innovation. For them to be able to upgrade their system, it's just very difficult because they have their closed system. So whereas WordPress, I mean, it's totally open source. You have all these different plugin developers that have developed different things. People can rewrite the code in however they want. They have child theme type stuff that you can do for custom themes and customization. So yeah, there's a lot more that can be done there.
Yeah. And for the geekery terms here, for people not familiar with WordPress, like plugins are like modules. Like if you're sitting around looking at your website and you say, gosh, I wish we could do this thing for our business on the website. Lo and behold, you could go into plugins, or better yet, ask us, and we'll be able to find a plugin that does just the little thing that you need to do, and you can tweak your website. Whereas Squarespace, you're sitting around, I wish I could do this. Tough luck. It's not going to, or at least not for a long time, until Squarespace decides that one particular feature is desired by enough people. Whereas WordPress doesn't need to be the case. You could have anything developed, even if it's just
Yep.
exists only on your website, which we do all the time. And Jonah has developed tons of custom functionality for our clients' websites that are unique to their site. So
Yep.
that's really nice. And I can tell you from the business perspective too, not just the developer designer perspective. I have used platforms in the past, especially 10 years ago when things were still brand new and there were a lot of solutions not yet made for businesses online. The platforms that were really closed were the most frustrating. Like I'd sit there and say, I wish this thing would do something different for me. And
Yep.
it just wouldn't. And I could tell that they wouldn't care either because they had enough customers where they said, we're not going to invade as long as people are paying. And,
Yeah,
and as soon
exactly.
as another solution came up that was more flexible, more open, those platforms died, so sometimes it's immediately obvious if you're a business owner to know that how important this innovation piece is and the customizability. And then sometimes it slips in there over time. And then by the time you realize it, you're like, dang, I'm really so into the system. I'm committed. So it's a big deal. Even if you're starting out, it's a big deal to think about the future a little bit, to say, like, where could this business go? What do I want for my business? And what might I need technology wise?
Well, and yeah, just one more thing to say about the innovation and kind of connecting back to the first point that WordPress powers some really big sites and a huge
Yeah.
portion of the internet. That's sort of pressure in a way on WordPress as a company to continue to innovate and to keep up with the fact that they have such a huge base of businesses and individuals that are using their
Yeah.
system, and it's
Yeah.
in their best interest to keep on improving it and
Right.
keeping
Totally.
it open and keeping it flexible and customizable.
Yeah. So they experience that pressure positively and it turns into innovation. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yep.
Um, and so going into number 4, Squarespace is deceptively not easier to use. Now, my particular opinion on this is a couple of things. One is that, again, we mentioned this earlier, but just having a website doesn't mean anything. A website has to be effective. And what is it being effective at? Communication, engagement, conversion, having somebody be new, become a engaged user and a paid customer. So sites have to be effective, and you just can't throwing up a site doesn't mean that's going to be effective. So one, there's some deceptiveness about that, where you think, oh, if I just use Squarespace, then I have a business. Not necessarily true. This is something that everybody in business online has to think about. We have to constantly consider what's changing in the market, what's changing with our customers, what are the needs, and be able to adapt to it. Now, in terms of hands-on use of it, we're people who are experts at this. We can hop into platforms, we can work with them. And when last time I was in Squarespace, I'm like, I can use this, but it was a frustrating experience to me. Actually, it was just sort of like, I could kind of feel some of that lack of innovation in there, and I know they'll improve, which that they're going to do that. But for me, I was just like, the other thing is that we do this stuff. Okay. This is what we do. Any clients, you're watching this, the thing is, like, you're not in the business of making websites. So anything you're learning to do, you're going to learn this one time and then that's it. And in learning it, especially if it's counter to your personality, is going to be a frustrating experience. So the sort of measurement of, like, how much easier is this than another platform is sort of irrelevant, because for you, it's all new. It's all a different language. So you have the combination of, like, wanting your site to be effective, in which case it's really important to leverage experts, and then 2, this is not what you want to do. So going into Squarespace is going to be, it can be a very frustrating experience. I'm not saying everybody, but for a lot of folks and most of our clients, it's just, that's my thoughts.
Yeah, totally. I agree with all that. I think it's almost too easy to use, and I think that's almost the misinformation, or like the confusion around it. They make it seem so easy to use, but it's too easy in that you can't do everything that you're going to want to do, or you can't do as much as you're ultimately going to want to do with the website.
Right.
So you just end up being limited with the tools and the customization options that you have.
True. And anytime, basically what they're going to cater to is that, like, they're in terms of making things easier, they're going to have to necessarily limit stuff too. So that goes hand in hand. So, but again, I know we're in the business of this is what we do, but in a compassionate sense, I want things to be easy for our clients. And so it's just got to be real and say, get help with these things, and if you're going to get help, use the better platform, which is so number 5, better SEO. And Jonah, you might be able to speak to this more. And there's a lot of geeky stuff around SEO, but again, SEO is search engine optimization. It just means when people search a particular term that's relevant to your business, where do you show up in those search results? And of course, the higher you show up relative to that search result, the more that people can find you. And how your website is built, underneath the hood, this is particularly behind all the nuts and bolts and the engine of your website. Those are the things that really impact how you show up in search results. And WordPress has a lot more power. Squarespace is really limited.
Yeah, I mean, with it's sort of connected to just the overall customization. It's related to that in that you've got various plugins and tools that come out of the box with WordPress where you're just going to be able to do so much more with your SEO if you need to.
Yep.
But there's also going to be a base level of SEO that's going to be really beneficial for your search engine ranking and position
Yep.
overall. So, if you're getting into, well, number one, if you're launching a new site on WordPress, you're going to have great SEO out of the box.
Yep.
Via WordPress. And number two, if you need to do modifications or kind of more granular, fine-tuned SEO for particular search engine phrases that maybe you're working with a search engine marketer on,
right.
You can do all that in WordPress to a very fine degree. So yeah, there's a lot of control there.
Yeah. So even if you're not doing much with it, but you want to have your bases covered, WordPress out of the box does a lot more for you for the SEO. And then if you need to do any sort of campaigning with it and you really want to target some search keywords, then you definitely need something like WordPress, because Squarespace is not going to give you that power.
Right.
Cool. So number 6, better data collection to drive marketing and sales in WordPress. And again, data collection sounds like a very abstract term, and it's kind of like, and I know particularly the smaller the business, the more likely people don't think that way. But really these days, everybody is dealing with data somehow. If you're collecting emails for an opt-in, you're dealing with data. But the more that your business is maturing, the more that you're dealing with the data of your customers, who they are, what they need, what they want, and then how that data is put into your systems. Like, how does it put into autoresponders, and how can you with more refinement, target each people with what they need? In order to do that kind of thing, which leads to more sales, you have to have data up front. And so Squarespace gives you just a few basic options from what I could tell about, I've seen, again, they're always upgrading, of course, if they're making little tweaks, but still it's really basic stuff over there. Whereas WordPress, it's bananas, like what you can do.
Yeah. WordPress, I mean, again, related to the customization, there's a number of form building plugins out there. One of which, we use very often, Gravity Forms, that just allows you to gather data in a bunch of different ways, from very basic forms to opt-ins to full-on quizzes or questionnaires, and all different kinds of things that you can do with that data, like sending it to other systems, firing off emails, autoresponders, adding people to lists, email lists, all kinds of stuff. So there's that data collection, but then there's also even just kind of analytics data that's available. And sure, you can plug in different things into Squarespace, like you can do Google Analytics and things like that. But WordPress is going to have a little bit more on the back end, just built in, that's available to you.
That's right. Yeah. I forgot to mention that side of data. And that's basically data that's telling you how your customers and users are engaging with your website and with your offerings. You get feedback on that. And that is also huge. And I think particularly this kind of data is really important for solopreneurs and small businesses, because since you you might not be able to hire a team of people to do this work for you. You need to be able to find ways to automatically gather this data, which is going to help you to be more informed about business decisions. And you want it to be all automatic, and as much as possible paint the picture for you, so that way you're saving time. So it's sort of a thing where it's like, well, in this day and age, I consider it necessary, but also for these businesses, if you really want to be successful, you're going to have to, embrace that kind of thing and leverage it. So
and get a handle on your data.
Get a handle on the data. Exactly. Yeah. And then number 7, portability. WordPress is much more portable. Now, as I mentioned earlier, for me, I'm always looking, what's the best possible solution I can use right now, today, and that hopefully it will last as long as I could possibly imagine, and just writing it out. That's the dream. That's the ideal. Things do change over time, and we don't know what's going to happen. That's just a fact, no matter what you're doing in business and what you're doing online. With WordPress, obviously, we're big fans of it. So we've been using it for a decade. We're still using it. But it's good to know that you have full control over your content and your website, and that it's portable, meaning you can move it to different platforms, or even duplicate certain efforts and adapt them on other platforms. And WordPress allows you to do that better than Squarespace.
Yeah, you're going to have much more granular control in WordPress, meaning, in Squarespace, sure, you can, there are some export features for exporting data. You can copy and paste content. You may still have images and whatnot that you plugged into your website. But with WordPress, everything is stored wherever your website is hosted within WordPress, but then also on the server. And there's ways within WordPress to easily export specifically what you want. So whether it's products, whether it's blog posts, whether it's page content, form data, you've kind of got all of this stuff that you can move around wherever you need to, if you need to move it to another system.
Totally. And this also might sound like a particular challenge that maybe a smaller business might not be aware of up front, but this is one of those things where we have dealt with several times with clients who had data that, we might be actually starting a new website for them in WordPress, and it was just better to start fresh and or to do new things with it. And if you grow this content over time and you're creating all sorts of content in different types and categories and everything, by the time you grow big enough and that you need this kind of thing to be able to in a refined way, deal with the content, you're going to know 100% what a pain in the ass it is if you weren't on this kind of platform, or if you didn't manage it appropriately up front. So if your idea is to grow your business and grow your content and data over time, it's way better to start in a system that can handle it, because once you're too far down the road, it's going to be a beast.
Right.
You want that kind of problem. You want that growth and success problem, but try to do it as best you can up front.
Right.
Number 8, WordPress has a more robust e-commerce. Now, Squarespace has some basic e-commerce stuff in there for sure, but WordPress is just like when we talked about innovation and customizability. The sky's the limit in terms of what you can do on WooCommerce, and we've done a lot for clients in terms of customizing what they can do with e-commerce. I know you could say a ton about that. What's on your mind first, Jonah?
Yeah, I mean, really, customization. Again, it's like with WooCommerce, you can essentially do anything you want. You can set up any kind of store. There's tons of extensions that you can do different things in WooCommerce if you want to set up paywalls or subscription type payment systems or membership type sites with granular control over access to different parts of your site. You can manage inventory. You can tie into QuickBooks accounting and things like that with inventory. And there's just a ton that you can do with reporting is included in WooCommerce. The inventory management, which I mentioned. The variations like setting up product options. There's Squarespace does have some basic like product option setup,
Mhm.
but WooCommerce has so much more. I mean, there's just
Yeah.
way more that you can do. Um, so yeah, there's a lot. I mean, if you need anything from a basic e-commerce store to like a really complex e-commerce store,
Mhm.
WooCommerce can handle it all. Whereas Squarespace, you can have a basic store, but you might end up hitting a roadblock pretty soon with what you want to do there.
Yeah, and I would say that that roadblock happens with a lot of our clients. It's not just people running. And when we say store, it could be anything. It doesn't mean just necessarily physical products. It's like online products, virtual services, subscriptions, courses, all this stuff. And it's not just the bigger clients of ours who need these functionalities. It's so common, I found, that when people get into their business and they have the idea of like, I'd like to sell this in this way, and then they go to do it and it's like, oh, okay, you think in your mind, oh, this will just be easy, I can just be able to do it, and you have to take a step back and say, oh, okay, so I'm gonna have to piece together this pathway and this particular arrangement of selling this
Yeah.
product or this service. And that's where WooCommerce and shines, and it's so great. And again, I promise, I have seen very small businesses do this, and it goes back to the sense of like, everybody's selling online now, and you have to sell in really innovative ways. You have to reach
Mm,
customers in innovative ways, and having the flexibility to do that gives you a lot more strategic possibilities. So again, we can go at the functional side of things, and saying like, what do I want this to functionally do? But this also impacts strategy. So if you only have like 2 or 3 ways to sell, that limits your strategy. You can only create products that can adapt to those limitations in Squarespace. In WooCommerce, the the possibilities are pretty big in terms of what creativity you have in creating products. So
yeah, the sky's the limit.
yeah, totally, it's great.
Yep.
And then the last piece here is WordPress is excellent for multilingual websites. Now, this might not affect everybody, but I think it's affecting more and more people because a lot of our clients are working with people all over the world. And so you're running into a lot of different languages there. And in particular, a lot of our clients are dealing with services that are of the intangible nature of like relational, heart to heart, kind of things, the inner worlds of people. And those things usually beg to be spoken to in a person's native language, actually.
Mm,
But so the multilingual thing definitely comes up the bigger the business is and the more that the markets are in particular different countries. But I'm seeing it as a bigger deal to be able to reach people in multiple languages. And to do that, that's another thing where you think could be really simple. And then when you get into it, it's being a little bit of a beast to do. And WordPress just gives you a lot more power. And Jonah's dealt definitely with the multilingual sites with our clients.
yeah, I mean, any website you can translate with Google Translate,
Right.
but you're going to have to go through that service, and the translation may not be all that great. Um,
No. And I can tell you
and
that too. Sorry to
yeah,
pause. Yeah, that's a
that's
good
okay.
thing to mention because I've studied. I'm on my third language, and I've done languages, and I've done translations. Sometimes we use Google Translate, and I promise you, you can't rely on that to transmit meaning, especially when it
Mm,
comes down to like, will this translation effectively communicate what we're doing and what we're about and what the service is, such it will lead to a sale? No. And then you got to assume that a
mm,
person's going to go through the hassle of like, I guess you can install the Google Translate thing maybe on your website natively, but it's not that elegant. So from the
right.
language perspective, I can say I would not trust that. Now,
Yeah, yeah, you're going to have much more granular control with something like WPML for WordPress,
mhm,
where you just have ultimate control over all of the strings on your website, and you can manage your different languages and translate everything. You can also connect up. Like they have a third party translation service, so you can
mm,
actually submit um, content to be translated through your WordPress website, rather than having to go search some other marketplace or find a freelancer. It's like you can do it right there. You submit the content through WordPress, it gets translated, it comes back in, and boom, it's ready to go on your website.
that's wonderful. That's great.
Yeah,
Yeah, WPML is fantastic. Um,
yeah.
Cool. So those are our 9 big reasons why we think WordPress is better for Squarespace, especially for our clients. And I hope that was helpful. And of course, if you have any questions for us about your website or about WordPress, we always do free chats up front to talk about your project and your needs. And whatever you're needing for your project, we get our whole team involved to discuss what's going to be best for you. So give us a shout. And thanks,
Yeah, for
Jonah,
sure.
for doing this chat.
Yeah, thank you.